my gosh.
There
Marcus.
you go.
Oh,
There
there
he
you go.
is.
Hey, pleasure. It's official. I get to meet Doug, the man,
Look
the
at
myth,
what
the
he's
legend.
doing. Look at what he's doing, Simon. His
He's on
brain
the
is all the same.
well, he's on a treadmill.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a,
There's a treadmill underneath. So I actually took my weight vest off, but once we start rocking and rolling, don't worry. I'll stop walking. I'll just stand.
no. Oh my goodness. Wow. You flew out.
I am for real. I am for real. It's well. So what happened was, when COVID hit, and before COVID hit, I had quit my job before COVID, and I used to travel nonstop. So I used to get on a plane, and I would walk 10, 12,000 steps, no problem a day, very easily. Once I quit that, I stopped traveling that home. I saw the pounds start creeping up without realizing it, just because
Right.
I wasn't walking, and that's what ended up happening. So it is what it is. It is what
So
it
is
is.
it a regular treadmill or is it like a Dex treadmill?
It's a special treadmill, so it's smaller than usual. It can only go up to 4 miles per hour, but I think
Okay.
even that setting is, I think it's not accurate. It's pretty slow, I think. But with this, I will walk if I'm on too many, speaking things like podcasts or webinars. I'll only get like 10, 12,000 steps. But if I have maybe less calls, maybe it's more of a work day, I'm just like cranking away. I will easily do 15, 20,000 steps in a day. So I usually average about 12 to 13,000 steps per day. Which is necessary if you have to. Otherwise, you just get stagnant.
I need to buy myself one of those because I'm glued to this
Yeah.
machine right here that's sitting in front
Yes.
of me from 5 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm on this machine, 5 a.m. all the way to lunchtime, eat
Yeah.
lunch, see the kids. Then I'm on it all the way to 5 p.m. dinner time. Then I'm on it from about 7 p.m. all the way to 11 o'clock. This machine right here. And I really
Yes.
have got to get off this chair and start walking sometimes. So that's a good idea, man.
I've
Rise
got
and
a
Devs.
spin bike here.
Yes.
Look, I'll show you. There you go.
There you
See?
go.
I
That's a good
like
Yeah.
looking at
idea.
it. That's all I
It
do. Look at
looks
it.
it looks great.
I hang
It
the
looks
clothes on
great.
it. Yeah, I know it's good.
Yeah. So my wife has a real treadmill, like a legit one where you can run on stuff. Now she just likes to walk on it, but on Amazon I went and got her this extra device so you can strap a laptop to it. So they probably have the same thing for you, Simon. You could if you chose to, you could
I can.
spin and zoom at the same time.
No, it's all good. I'd fall off. I'm such a retard. Can we use the word retard or that's politically incorrect? I can use it for me.
You
That's
can
it.
use it for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
But well, 4 miles an hour is about twice the speed Doug and I want to go at. So
yeah.
that'd be
So
perfect for us.
I usually keep it at about 2 miles per hour. Yeah,
Perfect.
it's once you go four is too fast. Still, it's just you're out. You're sweaty. You get
Yeah.
sweaty, and you don't want to
As
be
long as
sweaty
there's a
and
cup
tired.
holder to put the Heineken, I'd be happy.
I got a whole desk. You can put as many Heinekens as possible right here on the desk.
So Marcus, Doug, introduce Marcus. He's a rock star. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, he's a real rock star. I think this is the first rock star we've had on the show. So thank you, Marcus. By the way, the reason why I say he's a rock star because every once in a while in the LinkedIn reel, LinkedIn story, he puts his schedule up there. So if you ever want to know what a machine looks like, look at Marcus' schedule and how he organizes his entire day. So we're actually quite lucky he's here with that because I don't know how he fit it in, but Marcus is somebody I've been following probably a year and a half
Yeah.
now. We go back a ways, and he's got his hands into a lot of different things, mostly into B2B sales. So he's got a great, fantastic backstory. So I'm not quite sure his official title. He owns a consulting company, and he had lots of highly effective training for B2B salespeople or even people who are not salespeople but looking to generate more sales for themselves. We'll talk to him about that soon. But from what I've seen, he's one of the rare people who post their results. They post their result. How many times do we see that on LinkedIn? Not very much.
Right.
With him, it's almost every day. Somebody's making something. They're upping their sales, they're upping their quota, they're getting promoted from different sales positions. And he's constantly posting that. It's really inspiring stuff. So I'm going to stop blabbing. Marcus, can you share who you are? What do you do officially so our listeners can know who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Doug, great to officially meet you via Zoom. I mean, I can't believe. I mean, I think every day we engage on each other's stuff, right? We DM each other, so it's really, really cool to officially meet you. Simon, this is the first time, we ever talked as well, so great to officially meet you as well.
You too.
So, I'm pumped to be here. So, I'm Marcus Chan. So, I have a consulting company called Venly Consulting Group, and it's super simple. I help people who are in B2B sales sell and earn more. That's it. It's as simple as I can get it, right? So that's what I really focus on. What's cool is this business has only been around for about 18 months. And what's really neat is when you mentioned, hey, we've been interacting for about a year and a half or so, makes perfect sense. Because before, yes, I was active on LinkedIn. But once I started my business, I went 100% in on LinkedIn because I knew it was be such a powerful platform. Because before this, I was in corporate America for over 14 years. From the bottom, outside B2B sales, to selling massive deals, to leading massive teams of 100 plus employees, to doing 9 figures a year in annual sales contracts. So we did quite a bit of stuff, but I made that leap, a year and a half ago to start my own business, but it's been an absolute journey, ups and downs, just like anything else, but a lot of fun though.
Yeah, so you and Simon, whether you know it or not, I think Simon mentioned that, have a lot in common. In more ways than you may think. So I'm excited for the two of you to meet for the first time. So Simon, you were getting ready to say something.
No, I was just saying it's a pleasure to meet you, Marcus, but I think we probably share more in common than you think, given that, I come from an Asian family and I grew up, in Australia. There was a huge, immigration of Asians to yes. Melbourne. And, my uncle started our family business by, pushing a wheelbarrow up a street selling caneware and wicker baskets and, just that rags to riches story. And back then, Marcus, it was a white Australia policy. They didn't believe in immigration and Asians were, yes. Very weird. And so I assimilate with the story that, I was born in Australia. My father was born, who's Chinese, was born in Australia. And my kids were born in Australia. So they're like, it's nearly washed out. But I think that Asian work ethic has remained with me. I'm not saying that other people don't have that work ethic, but, that immigrant work ethic, which is yes. very prevalent with Italians and Greeks and Turks and the Chinese in Australia. And I think I see that here too in the US.
Yes.
And so when I was reading your bio about your sisters and you grew up in a pretty, fairly low, should I say low income, struggle.
Oh, we were poor. We were poor. Yeah.
So tell me, what perspective has your background given you today and the success you've had today in not only in corporate America, but, in your own consulting business? Because you look content. You just don't look very Asian because you're not fat. And, we expect you to be a lot, be chunky like Doug and I, right? But you're this fit, young, guy on a treadmill, right?
So I appreciate you giving me a huge head here, right? So, I believe many of the values that was instilled within me as in a very early age from my parents and the culture has really helped me in B2B sales, in my career, in my life. And you add in just different things that I've learned over time. But, for example, one of the things is I did see growing up, because my parents had their own restaurant, I did see, because they came from nothing, and they shared many stories how it was even worse off before they even came to America. It was, for me, a very scary thing. So I grew up actually with a lot of fear of like, oh man, like if I thought this was bad, it can get worse. And I never want to get to that point again. So that was the first piece. The second piece I saw growing up was I saw, regardless of whatever obstacles were thrown my family's way, my parents' way, they always found a way either through, around, or over it. And that was just part of life. So if something happened, like whether we were at the restaurant and someone broke in overnight, stole money out of the till, trashed the whole place, I'm freaking out being a 7-year-old kid. And my dad's like, yeah, he's upset. But he's like, you know what? Okay, what are we going to do next? We're going to board the windows up. We're going to board up the broken windows. And we're going to, clean everything up. And in a few hours, we're going to open up. And the cops are going to come, make sure everything's totally good. But we're going to keep business as usual. We have to keep going. We can't dwell on it. It's what's already happened has happened. Yeah. And that type of understanding, see how my dad was able to push through and persevere regardless was really, really important. What I also saw was really key too is, just never being satisfied. As you know, in Asian culture, you are never quite satisfied, right? Like you got all A's. Well, why weren't the A pluses in there, right? Hey, you got all A pluses. Why weren't you involved in more events, right? Which can be good or bad, because for some kids, that can be very detrimental to their mental health. For me, I thrived on that. So I'm like, okay, I guess you're right. I could go better. I remember distinctly, I was a competitive swimmer growing up because, we had to do events, do, sports, very normal. So I was a competitive swimmer growing up. And, I was really fortunate. I was the fastest guy on the swim team, the youngest team captain, whatever. And my coach used to love to push me as well. And he'd have me do different events that were not my strong suit. And I remember my coach is pretty intense. So, we would have, we had 11 practices a week. Okay. Before events before swim meets over the weekend, it was not uncommon if the swim meet was later in the day, like maybe 11 a.m. to whatever, we would have practice in the morning first. So we would go and swim, 8 to 10,000 meters in the morning for practice, and then go to a swim meet, compete for 10 hours. That was not uncommon. So I remember one of the events that my coach had me do on a Saturday. I ended up taking first place, which is cool. And my parents, were at dinner. They were talking about, how the day went. They're like, "How'd you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I did okay. This event, I didn't want to do it, but I did get first place. That's pretty cool." And they're like, "Oh, cool. But did you get a personal record?" I'm like, "But no, I didn't get a personal record, but I did get first place. They're like, "You could have got a personal record." I'm like, "Okay," but it does get annoying at times. But that type of mindset of what I call KNI, constant, never-ending improvement, is so key for life success, sales success, business success. And I applied that when I was in B2B sales to leading teams to my own business. And of course, there's many other values, but that type of grit and perseverance, even it's being able to see that even though you don't get immediate payoff, but it'll pay off in the long run, you can always get better. That's a very powerful value to instill in a child at a very early age.
I think you're exactly right. I'd like to get your perspective, Marcus, on, the last year's been extremely challenging for a lot of people, and I think for some, COVID's probably been the most significant amount of diversity, they've faced, or adversity, that they've faced. It's been the toughest for them, either financially, economically, socially, being socially isolated. What do you, and I think that you're right. Our parents, that generation, were far better equipped to handle with that adversity than a lot of people today. And I'd love to hear your perspective on, what would you say to a B2B client that's in selling today, saying, "Marcus, shit, I'm struggling, man. I don't know what to do. I don't have much of a purpose. I think our industry's screwed." COVID has impacted a lot of people, that they don't yet realize. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So if I was having, let's say, a one-on-one conversation with a person who's in this mind space right here, I think it's number one, what's important is I need to also understand, acknowledge those feelings are valid. Okay. Doesn't mean they're true, but they're valid.
Right. And
there's a big difference there. And that's the first piece. So having that conversation, understand, hey, you know what? It has been a hard year for many people. Yes, some industries were massively impacted. Like if you were in, hospitality, tourism, your industry was devastated.
Right.
All right. But then on top of that, once you empathize, once you understand, it's important to say, okay, what other limiting beliefs do you have, and how can we shatter those limiting beliefs? And what can we do differently to shift the perspective? Because you can't change the circumstances you are surrounded in. Because there's something you just cannot control. You cannot control COVID. You cannot control a whole industry getting shut down. But what you can control is how you react from it. Yeah. So at that point, you can just sit around and allow it to overtake you, in which at that point, For most people, you start having what I call ants crawl into your head, automatic negative thoughts. They start creeping into your head, and one leads to 2, then to 10, then 15, and then more, and you'll let eat you alive. Or you can choose to take action to do something about your situation. And oftentimes, people will often get stuck with is that I don't know action to take. Well, the truth is, in tough situations, action usually creates a result, which will create clarity. So by taking action, you will get a better result. And for someone who's really stuck in that type of industry, or stuck in that mind space, there's a couple of things they could do. Number one, they could start cutting out anything that's negative in their life. If they're watching a lot of news, I'm sorry, but the news does not help you, right? It only hurts you. Cut out the news. If you're surrounded by other negative people, cut them out of your life, at least temporarily, because they're not going to help you. And start surrounding yourself with the right people, the right mind space, and those who are successful. Because when you think about this, regardless of the industry, even one like hospitality or tourism that got heavily impacted, there's always a very small percentage, regardless, that find a way to still have success. And I'll give you a really specific example, right? So when the last recession hit, before the most recent, when the last recession hit, and businesses were like, shutting down, etc. Also around the same time, one of the businesses that got absolutely devastated was Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Video got absolutely devastated. Pretty much all of them shut down. Now I'm out here in Oregon, which is on the west coast of the U.S., and in Portland, Oregon, we still have 4 VHS places. Okay, they're still running DVDs and videos. But what do they do differently? They adapted. They create a better environment. I think some adding like food and like alcohol in their facilities, right? Now I don't know how they're faring right now because of that, but my point is regardless, in every single industry, when everyone says you can't make it happen, there's always a small percentage of people who are making it happen. And those are the ones that you want to model their mindset, their behaviors, and find a way through. And when you start thinking that way and you stop accepting what the average is saying, you start achieving extraordinary results. You start thinking in different ways, and you create a new paradigm for yourself.
I completely agree. Let's talk about LinkedIn, Marcus, because you and Doug obviously are dependent. I shouldn't say, is dependent the right word? Is dependent on the LinkedIn ecosystem to essentially drive leads to that end in business. But Doug said something, and I was watching a podcast of it. We had a chat, just he and I, last week, and I was watching it again this morning. And he said something quite profound, and Doug doesn't say too many profound things. This was one of them. And he said, he needs to get off a platform that he doesn't control. So the three of us don't have any control over LinkedIn. The fact that it's owned by Microsoft, we have no idea what those crazy people are thinking or wanting to do with the network. But talk to us about that as a lead gen tool for people like you that depend on LinkedIn to generate, leads. And the fact that you don't own the ecosystem and you won't own it ever, and how do you tackle that? Like our business doesn't, our transportation business doesn't depend on LinkedIn at all. And maybe we should experiment more, but we don't. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, great question. So I think the first thing I understand is, first of all, I don't depend on LinkedIn. It definitely is a great traffic source for me, but I don't depend on LinkedIn. What's important to understand is, typically for businesses, there are 3 types of lead sources, okay? There's nets, spears, and and seeds, okay? Nets, spears, and seeds, okay? Seeds are typically like referrals. That's like word of mouth. That's just like, people, you have to be in business for a long time, and then people kind of find out about you, and people say, hey, go talk to Simon, go talk to Doug. And those are great, okay? Those are definitely great, but it takes a long time usually to build up a presence for that, okay?
What do you call that? Seeds?
Seeds, because you're basically planting seeds out there.
Yep, okay. Fair enough.
And then you have nets. Mm-hmm. Nets are like, like when you were putting a net out there, you put it out to the mass audience, and you're hoping you can catch some leads, catch some opportunity. And with that being said, that means you're on a LinkedIn, a Facebook, an Instagram, platform X, and you're putting that out there to capture some leads, okay? And that can be organic or it can be paid traffic, okay? Then you also have spears. Spears are hyper-targeted outbound. So you're doing outbound. You're throwing spears out there, and that can be email, cold call, DM, whatever, outbound, direct mailers, and you're sending spears out there. They're very targeted. A strong business that's very well diversified is hitting all those seed, spears, and nets. That's the first thing to understand. Okay, and they should be on as many platforms as possible to do that. But here's the thing: at the end of the day, all those things should funnel into core ways to convert leads. That's a very important thing. So this is actually why I'm a firm believer owning the information in the email list is still king. Yeah. Whoever owns the list makes the money. Right, that's a key, because regardless of what platform they're on, you can still hit the email list. So this is why it's so vital that, like for me, like I have many sources of leads. So I'll give you an example. So I do LinkedIn organic posting, which generate leads. I mean, Doug sees my posts. I have calls to actions galore in the comments, very intentionally. Scatter lead magnets designed to drive and collect information. Okay, I have organic posting. Okay, I also have inbound leads that come in. They accept me, and I put them through a sequence. Once they accept them, we through a DM sequence and emailing. Okay, and then from there we also have an outbound strategy. We have a targeted outbound strategy on LinkedIn, targeting people every single day, doing outbound DMs and emails. Okay, so it's all tied together. All right. Mm-hmm. We have a Facebook strategy. I own a Facebook community as well. It's a funnel group. So people go into my group, it funnels the leads into my funnel, and I nurture them. Okay, we're 1,600 plus in that group right there. That's huge. We also post right on the page. I also do direct targeted ads as well with the page. So I'm hitting specific target audiences as well. Instagram, same concept, organic posting as well, and targeted posting as well. And that's in addition to everything else that I'm doing, from different speaking engagements, different podcasts, et cetera, which of course, they're all driving towards main core things designed to collect information from the prospects and convert them into my funnel. So I have multiple sources, and I share that because we should never depend on just one platform, even if it's been a cash king or whatever. But we should have multiple sources, and that's how I think about even a platform like LinkedIn. Right now, it is fantastic. I mean, organic wise, to get the amount of views I get on LinkedIn in one post, it will usually cost me about $1,000 to get the same amount of views, right? So I got to spend quite a bit of money just to get the same amount of one day in 24 hours. So that adds up, and it's all organic, right? And some posts, if they go really well, I might have to spend $10,000 on Facebook to get the same amount of views on that post. So that's why you need to have a multi-pronged strategy from a top of the funnel work to funnel leads in. And the mistake most people make is they only have one source. They're dependent on, say, LinkedIn, and LinkedIn shuts down tomorrow, or the algorithm changes, nobody sees their stuff. So you really need to have a multi-pronged approach of inbound and outbound that's going to lead to a consistent flow of leads. So that's all really key. And of course, I track all the stuff. So I know how many inbound leads are coming in every single day. I know how many outbound messages we're sending every single day, all designed to convert at a very, very high level.
A couple of things here. First, I can confirm his funnel, because every time I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Marcus' face is right in front of me. I mean, he has an ad that we've talked. I emailed him a bunch of times saying, "Hey, great ad today. Great with the Harry Potter. Great with that. Great with his wife, with his cat." He really, every time I'm on social media, I will see Mike's face somewhere, and it's so his strategy is working very well. And second thing is, Marcus one of the very few people where I have nothing to pitch him. I can't pitch him because he's doing it so good that I have nothing to say, hey, you might want to improve on that. I have nothing. It is so rock solid that I just give up. I'm just like, whoever you hire, hope you're doing yourself. Give him a bonus. So I never pitched to Mike because he doesn't need me. Third thing, on one of his Facebook ads, which I think most people need to look at it as a form of experiment and really understand the psychology. I want to get it from you, but I'm not going to blab too much about it. But it's actually not selling anything. He actually tells you that in the copy. I'm not selling you anything. Pick that. I forget what it was. And you actually don't. You do get funneled into another part of it, but you're actually giving value that's actionable right away. Like you could actually do something with it. Whether you're going to get from 0 to 1 million, not the case, but you'll get somewhere with it. can you talk to me about the psychology of how you capture them with the lead magnet, and what was the psychology behind the lead magnet?
Yeah, great question. So, and that's in specific to to an ad like that, right? So, typically, all pretty much all ads follow a very similar format, right? Which is like first couple lines are the hook, right? In the middle is a value or story, and then you have a CTA, call to action. So that specific one, depending on which one you saw, was probably one on cold call and whatever. They're very tactical strategies. So this is how I picture, right? So I'm imagining a person is sitting there at home, they're drinking a beer, they're hanging out at home, they're kind of watching Netflix or the news, they're on their phone, they're scrolling around, and they're not really paying attention. Then hopefully they see my ad and it captures their attention because speaking directly to them. They look, okay. And within 3 seconds, they're going to make a judgment call. I'm either going to continue to read or watch this video, or I'm going to keep going. So hopefully I hook them enough so then they open up the ad and they start reading through. And as they start reading through, they're like, oh, wow. Because most people believe people that are putting ads out there are these scammers, these fake influencers, these people who don't know how to have success. So one of the fastest ways I find to cut through all the BS is to be truly tactical and specific and share something they can actually walk with action on. They're like, oh, wow, this is actually, he actually knows what he's talking about. He's speaking my language. He clearly knows my heartburns. He clearly, it's when I think about a post, most posts should pass what I call the whisper test, okay? And this is how it kind of falls together. So the whisper test is this. I imagine as if my perfect avatar, my perfect customer, the ideal customer profile, I imagine they're out to dinner, obviously in a COVID-safe environment, with their spouse, and they're having this nice, intimate dinner. It's romantic, it's deep, and I walk up to that person, and I whisper in their ear everything that's on their mind about B2B sales, their heartburns, their wants, their desires, using the exact language and how they describe it. And when they hear that, they're like, how did you know that? And then I say, I can help you with that. And they will rush away. They leave their spouse at dinner. They rush away with me, right? So that's how I picture my copy and how my post should be and how my ad should be, because they should be like, okay, I better take action now. So when they read through that post, they see that, okay, you know what? I'll give up my email address to check out this information. So that then they check out the information, right? It's a high impact webinar. So depending on which funnel it is, a high impact webinar and training. They go through that and I teach them things and I inspire them and I show lots of proof. Like in all my, like if anyone watches any of my webinars, I will drop, no joke, between 30 to 50 different screenshots and testimonials. Boom, 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 boom. So they know each stuff works. I'm like, hey, here's step number 1, do this. Okay, that sounds cool. Here, let me show you the results. Here's A, B, C, D, E. I'm like, okay, I should do that. Okay, all right. Here's step 2. Boom. Sounds cool. Here's some more proof. Boom, 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 boom. So by the time they get done, it should be crystal clear to them that they know I can help them. I have achieved and help people achieve the results they want to achieve. And at that point, they have a choice. They can continue to consume my free content, or they could jump on a call with me to discuss potentially working together. So from there, then they'll go and they'll jump on a call with me, right? Which is about 11% of people that watch it immediately do that, right? The other 9% don't book immediately, and they need to be nurtured some more because perhaps they're still not warm enough. And at that point, I have other back-end ads and email sequences that continue to nurture them as well. So that way they get really, really warmed up. So by that point, maybe they'll book a call in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. If they just didn't like my guts, that's okay. They can unsubscribe and we'll move on.
Marcus,
it's a beautiful thing, Simon. It's a beautiful thing. What he just said, I can't describe it. It's a beautiful thing. I have goosebumps. It's like, I spend hours of my time trying to explain to clients how we can get these to convert. And he just summed it up and it's just a beautiful way. Anyway, Simon, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I agree with you, Doug. In a sense, it's probably got a lot of relevance to the project that you and I are doing right now, which is, good for us. But the other thing, Marcus, I got an email from a competitor of ours over the weekend, and they said, because we haven't heard from you for a while, we're going to unsubscribe you from the list. And I thought, oh, okay. I wouldn't do that. But I was intrigued, and I went onto their landing page and I clicked, keep me on the list. But would you recommend that as a tactic to say, if you haven't got engagement from, a certain segment of your list, would you unsubscribe them, or would you just let them keep consuming? Doug and I talk a lot about, the lurker, and the power of the lurker, right?
So there's definitely the lurker, right? So there's a difference between them opening and reading or not engaging at all, right? Because they're opening and reading, which is totally fine. So I'm good with that, right? And that's basically a version of what's called the breakup email. It's kind of like, well, maybe kind of say, hey, we're going to take this away from you. Then the most engaged people are going to say, I'm still in. So it's actually, it's a strategy right there. Now I'll do that if it's cold outbound. Yes. Pure cold outbound. I will just stop emailing them. Right. So it depends on the strategy. Right. So like for mine, like if I put them through a cold email campaign, right? So it's 10 different emails over 23 total days designed. This is pure cold. They're not inbound. They're completely cold. So they go through that. At the end, they're just like they just don't respond. It is what it is. And what ends up happening next is then they are put onto my my email list, right? So I have an email list as well where every week they're getting emails from me. So every single week now it's a newsletter of pure value. So that way they can continue to get nurtured. Now, if they also hit any of my websites, I have a Facebook pixel on there, and my ads will follow them around all over. So they're going to see me all over still regardless, right? If they Google me, that's fine because my ads show up too. Different ads that show up. So they start seeing me on the Google ads too, right? So they're starting to see that too. Now, in terms of does it make sense to unsubscribe? It can for sure. And here's why. Because if you're not careful, you keep sending emails to a dead email, it'll ruin your email sender reputation.
Right.
So what happens is it'll send more of your emails into spam. So I have an automated in my system where after I think we have 60 days how we set. After 60 days of no responding, we auto unsubscribe them. So that
what email platform do you use?
For my email campaigns, I use ActiveCampaign. That's what I use. But then I have a different CRM that I use for the cold outbound. But you want to protect, but also with cold emails, I also have burner emails too. So we have burner emails we've created intentionally to protect it, that we warm up to send purely for cold. So this protects our main email reputation for sending.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head at the start where, you mentioned the value of owning your own list. And that's, something that we have been very fortunate, to be able to do because we own the customer. And I couldn't agree with that more. Our fault as a business, we don't email enough, and I think that because a lot of people, if you look back through if we all took our inboxes today and you said, let's go back, and we use Gmail or G Suite. And so if you look back at the way your inbox is configured, it'll say, here's your primary email, here's promotions, here's whatever it is, right? And you look at so you go to the promotions tab and you'll see, I probably get an email a day from Bed Bath and Beyond, right?
Yeah.
Or Advanced Auto Parts. And you think, I don't think of it saying, shit, that's a lot of email, 25 emails a month, but it's not. That's probably the volume they need to get above the noise. And, that I might see nothing today or for the next week that interests me on Advanced Auto Parts, but it could be next week that I say, shit, yeah, we do need something, and it's just that, I think it's that top of mind. And I think people are fearful of sending too much email. Our industry is terrible at email marketing. Mm-hmm. Transportation companies will say, oh, we send one email a quarter. I'm thinking, okay.
No.
You have to be top of mind, right? So, I mean, and there's different strategies, right? When you're doing that B2C kind of like, like Bed Bath & Beyond, it's all pure promo, right? It's like a Target, it's the same thing. It's promo. When you're doing B2B, it's a little bit different game, right? A little bit different game. I mean, people just get annoyed after a while, like, another email, right? But this is why I think it's really key that you provide a lot of value. So, like, people that get on my email list, like, every single Monday, like maybe they watch one of my webinars, they watch it, they say, okay, cool, it's awesome. I'm just not ready. because of whatever X reason. That's okay. So now every single week now, even once they're outside my 30-day window of the email of that email sequence, once they're in just a regular weekly email, in that weekly email, it's just structured where I give them pure value, and then I have like specific links to help them. Hey, check out this to help you with this. Check out this to help you with this. Check out this to help you with this. And then from there, I do have a call to action at the bottom every single week as well. And as a result of that, I continue to nurture them even more and also book calls as a result of every single week. So it's key that even those emails that you are providing value for them. And it's no different. Hook, value, call to action. Right? That's all it is. That's all it is. It's the same format every single time, but there's enough value in there. Now, will some people unsubscribe? Definitely.
Yeah.
You simply cannot make everybody happy.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. You don't want them anyways, because they're probably not going to be a good client for you anyways. And if you think about it, even like a Bed Bath & Beyond, they probably have millions of email addresses.
Yeah, easily.
Okay? They just need 1% to convert. That's it. 1% to convert, and they'll be fine.
Yeah.
I have sort of a change up here because we only have like 20 minutes left. I've been thinking about this question because I've been following you a lot, Marcus. Not like a stalker, but
he's in love with you.
Really
Marcus, he's got a man crush on you. He's actually.
Well, it's because I'm incredibly charming too. I know.
No.
Great haircut too, so I get it.
It's that bald. It's the bald thing that's got him all
normal.
Up. Yeah.
So, my question to you is, I have two of them. Let's focus on the first one. If you could go back to your parents' restaurant, given everything you know, everything you've acquired in business in terms of knowledge and experience, if you could go back to your parents' restaurant when you were 7 years old, what advice would you give your parents to not struggle so much with the restaurant? How could they run a better business? How could they attract more customers? It seems to me, and this happens a lot because my primary niche is SMB, small business. So I work with a lot of moms and pops, people who invested their life savings into the business. They're very, very, they've got a tight grip on money. They're not going to just, they don't look at words like investment or ROI. So they're very, very tight in their nature to work with a marketer like me. But I'm curious to hear from you. If you could go back in time and have a talk with your mom and dad about growing the business, what were some tips would you give them? What some strategies would you put in place for them?
Yeah. So I would say the first piece would be, the first tip I would tell them to do would be to do this. If they were going to be open to do this, I would say number one, we need to get some new friends, because all their friends they hang out with were like in the same boat, if you will. Like they all own small one restaurant businesses that are doing about 1 million sales. Profit margins are tight. They're not running big businesses, right? So get rid of those friends and go find some people that we can actually truly benchmark with. Like who's running a 30 location restaurant business they start from scratch that's doing 30 to 50 mil a year. That's who you want to talk to. And we need to pay to acquire their time and learn from them. That's the first thing, because that's the fastest way to get to where we want to go. Is we literally steal their knowledge, right? There's two ways to acquire knowledge. Either you acquire through money or time. Whatever is most important to you, that's what you're going to spend, right? So that's really key. Now, if they're not willing to do that, then let's say if we had the technology today, I would run the business very differently. Like if I had a small restaurant today, number one, we have to make sure the experience is world class, because you can't just have food by itself anymore. People don't want to just come in there and eat food. That's just not enough. Like you have to truly make an experience of it. Okay, that's the first thing. So that means changing the offer to be enticing to the marketplace we're looking for. Most people don't have a good offer. They say, hey, new restaurant, I got location. Yeah, location is important for sure, but that's it. If you don't have something that hooks them in, nobody cares, right? There's always these restaurants growing up we remember as a kid, like, oh yeah, that was a place where, I could eat peanuts and throw them on the ground. Right. Stupid, but you remember, right? It's the experience. That's the first thing, to change the experience. Number two, we need to drive traffic, all right? We need to drive traffic. So in today's world, it's very different now. Back then, to get people to know about you, yes, you had to buy billboard ads. You had to put you put flyers. You had to manually go out there, right? If I was them, I would start targeting businesses for catering. That's something we never did. Like being able to pop a big order that's $300 to $500, every other day is very helpful for a small business. So I would start targeting businesses, right? Like literally doing direct outreach, nurturing them, having a CRM, direct outreach to go and close these accounts where you can generate consistent revenue that are bigger ticket items that you can establish. Oh, you have a training event? Great. 200 people? Perfect. Now we're starting to pop some big moves there, right? Number 3, if we live in today's time, I'll be utilizing Facebook ads nonstop. Facebook ads. I mean, in today's time, like I literally would target my target market. I'll be like, okay, I want to target within a 5-mile radius. People that are between the ages of, with my parents' demographic at the time, they were targeting people not in like high school. Let's call it 25 to 60. Okay. And I have certain promos. I have different ads created for them, right? So say, for example, if I want to have like a senior special, if you will, I would say, okay, cool. Like we're going to create an ad just for seniors for Sunday. I want to target people that are 65 and over in this area with an enticing early bird dinner that I know is going to hook them, right? They're going to want to come in, boom. They can get this. They can get this. So I would start hitting them with ads nonstop. I would do awareness ads and conversion ads. Right, awareness to get them to just be aware, and then conversion ads to get them to convert and do something. Get a coupon, get whatever, right? Collect their email so I can nurture them and own their information so I can start hammering them with emails when we have specials and events and different things that we're doing we're putting on. So that's the type of stuff I'll do like immediately, because the issue is for most restaurants or small businesses is they usually don't always have a conversion issue. They usually have a traffic issue.
Yeah.
They usually don't have enough of the right target market entering into whatever version of a sales funnel they have. So they are dependent on just word of mouth. Let me go to the Chamber of Commerce and do that, right? And I'm part of our local chamber. I was one of their business coaches. I only tell them how to do their outreach. I'm like you can't just join a chamber and think business is going to come in, and you can't just focus on the ancestral relationships within a typical Chamber of Commerce where you're just selling to each other. Well, there's only so many people. Like you only have 50 people in there. Like if you're a business, 50 customers, if you're a B2C business, is not going to be enough. You need a lot more than that to have a consistent, thriving amount of revenue and profit. So those are a couple things that I would do if I can go back in time and tell my parents, or if I could bring them to the future, I'll tell them to do this right now.
Yeah, I think it's great advice. I mean, we're in a similar boat, and I think, a buddy of mine actually, got out of transportation when COVID hit and opened a restaurant. He was a chef, and I think, Marcus, a good buddy of mine works for Google, and he's a very senior guy. And I had him on a podcast at the start of COVID, and he said something that sort of stuck with me forever. And he said, you have to win the hyper local market. If you're a local business, like your parents' Chinese restaurant, and I look back at all the restaurants in where I grew up and the ones that were massively successful, and they always dominated that hyper local the hyper local market. And so that's what I know as a business, we attempted to do that, because I only care about my own little geography. I don't care about competing outside of my hometown, right? Because it's just, this is a big enough fish pond for me to operate in, right? So I think it's very good advice.
Right? Yeah, so I think about even my parents, what they did do, right? So like, my dad was pretty smart. Like, for example, he knew, ads were expensive. So we used to do a lot of festivals on weekends. This is before food carts were a thing. Right. So he knew if he can get to a good-sized festival, and a festival could have 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people that would see him, right? So he's like, okay, cool. So that was like his way of being able to get in. If I can get my way in there, I have a lot of eyeballs on us. Whether they buy or not doesn't matter. But if I can convert, he didn't think it this way, but if you can convert 1% to 2%, it's way better converting 1% to 2% of 50,000 people than saying having 50 walk-in customers in your restaurant. Plus they're going to order. They're already in the mode to spend money because they're attending an event, a musical event, whatever it's going to be. Now, what we also did as well, you're going to like this, to even stand out in the local market. He got us hot pink T-shirts. These were hot pink T-shirts that had a restaurant name on it, right? So we stood out now as the Asian family with hot pink T-shirts cooking noodles at these fairs. And that became like our brand. And my dad even got like these, like, you're gonna love this. He got these like giant flags. It just like these random flags that would fly. So people would show up, our booth would stand out, 'cause we're wearing pink shirts. We get the stuff flying in the air. So it was his version of getting his name out there, which I thought was quite brilliant. And my dad, I'm like, that's a very inexpensive way to capture attention, get them coming back, right? Give them a great quality experience of food so they start to know us. Because those fairs would lead to them looking us, like looking us up in the yellow pages back then and saying, oh, you know what? We want to have dinner on a Saturday night, and where should we go? You know what? Oh, there's the pink shirt guys. Let's go to Oriental Village, and have dinner there tonight. And that was key for additional organic business as real to doing stuff like my dad did.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, I think people overcomplicate it. Like they think that they should be more clever than they need to be. And it was brilliant on your old man's, part, because he said, "Yeah, I got to stand out," and so people thought, "Yeah, okay, fine." It's
pink shirts,
right? As much as you probably cringed wearing those pink shirts, it was very clever, right?
I didn't like it at the time, but what's interesting is as I got a little bit older and into my teens, I really liked it, right? Because I'm like, you know what, like this does stand out, right? And it was cool. Like, this sounds so super weird, but like because we got more attention, like I would wear this pink shirt. It was like this tight form-fitting shirt, and I actually got a lot of girls' numbers at the time. I was single, right? As a single guy out there. They would see us, right? I got a lot of numbers. Like, oh, cool, It was a cool way to be able to capture attention in so many ways that benefited my business, my parents' business, and also me.
Well, Doug would give you his number. I mean, Doug would want your number if you wore your pink T-shirt.
If I wore a pink shirt, there, it was probably very likely. I'm out there cooking a mean noodle out there. It's not uncommon that I would attract a lot of attention. It happens.
Yeah. Well, Doug's man crush. He wouldn't care what color shirt you wore. It's okay.
That's fair. I appreciate that.
Hey, Mike, did your parents expect you to stay in the family business, or did they expect you to leave the family business to go do your own thing?
A very good question. I'd like to hear this.
So, what's really interesting is, I thought growing up, my parents wanted me to take over the restaurant, and that was not something I wanted to do. I mean, I saw, 80+ hour weeks, working weekends, holidays. It became a prison for my parents. I saw that. I remember how it literally became a prison for my parents. And I never wanted that. And I remember it was interesting because at the time, my plan was kind of work through there through college. And in 2002, my parents sold the restaurant. They sold the restaurant. And I'm like, oh, great. Now, but one of the things that they continue to do as well, though, was even to this day, they still do festivals. So the festivals by itself, which is like 20, 30 days out of the year, earns them enough income for the whole year because there's so much traffic there. And they built such a brand in the town that they're in that they make enough money for the whole year and they're totally fine. So for them, like once they sold the restaurant, my dad told me, he's like, I don't want you to own a restaurant. He's like, it's a hard life. Like you need to go to school, help us with the fairs, etc. I'm like, great. But I still didn't like the fairs because even though they're 20, 30 hours, I felt I had to physically trade my physical effort for money. I didn't like that. And my dad reminded me this actually a couple weeks ago because, we're talking about how everything's going for my business and, everything else. And we're kind of reminiscing. And he said to me, he's like, Marcus, do you remember what you told me in 2003 after this festival we had? I'm like, what? Because it was a festival that we did. And typically during a festival, like festival days, you're up at 8 o'clock and you're in bed by midnight. Like you're running it, you're up at 6, but you're actually running the restaurant, the right. Food cart by 8. So you have these long 15, 16, 18, 20-hour days back to back to back. And I hated it, right? So, and I remember my dad reminded me, he's like, after this Sunday, we were cleaning everything in the garage. It's late. It's like 1 a.m. We're cleaning, throwing pots and pans, to finish up. He said, you said to me, he's like, when you grow up, you're gonna put yourself in a position where you use your brain to make money, and you don't physically have to be there to physically put the work in. He's like, and now you've done that. And it was really interesting to me because I had totally forgot that. And he was spot on because, he came to America and he knew at the time with the knowledge he had, it would be a very physical and labor intensive way to make money, but he had to. It was not survival. But he wanted his kids to be put in a position where they wouldn't have to work to the same level of effort to generate the same amount of income, if not more. So, my dad never wanted me to take over the restaurant. Even with the festivals that he's still doing to this day, you know, his plan is just he'll probably give it to my sisters because they want to do it, which is totally fine. But they're gonna keep running that. But he's like I haven't worked in the festival in years now because you know, he's just my life has gotten crazy ever since. But he's never wanted that life for us. You know, he wanted to put us in a position where we had choices to make. And I'm super thankful that he did that. And I'm thankful that I worked in those tough environments back then and put all the work in because I learned so many great lessons that's helped me create a better future for myself and, you know, my kiddo.
I mean, I think it's the only thing that worries me, and I'd like to think I grew up in the same sort of physical work ethic, you know, where my parents worked extremely hard. We had retail businesses, long hours, you know, and you're expected to, you know what it's like, Marcus, you're expected to work in that business as a kid.
Yep.
And I certainly didn't want to take over my parents' business. But the thing that concerns me with the younger generation is I don't think that they understand what work ethic is.
Yeah.
I'm not. I know that's a generalization, and I'm probably, you know, as critical of my own kids as anybody else. My daughter's got a very good work ethic. My son is, you know, a different thing, and I worry about that.
Yeah.
You know. And COVID has certainly paralyzed a lot of people in terms of, you know, there's a paralysis out there that they're just, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
That was actually my second question for Marcus, because I know he has a son. I know he's very involved with his son because he posted a lot about it. But I grew up in New York, so I have a lot of friends who had parents who were immigrants. And you can kind of see the generation. It's so similar. You have a grandparent who came to America, bust their ass, their kids bust their ass, became successful, but their kids didn't acquire that work ethic, and they become, by your standards, lazy, right? And my question to the both of you is because I'm similar, even though we're not immigrants, my father's father, middle school education, redneck from Missouri, worked hard for his money, used his body to make money, taught his son that his son, who's white collar, goes to corporate America, take that same exact work ethic and applies it to corporate America, works in corporate America for 38 years, while his son benefits from his hard work. And you grow up in this wonderful house, and you grow up with wonderful cars, and you think, oh, wow, you know, it will just come to me. And then it come to me until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I'm like, oh my God, okay, I've got to stop what I'm doing and start working hard. So my question for you, Micah, how are you giving your son that immigrant hustle without him being that person? You know what I mean? How does he get that work ethic without growing up in the restaurant?
Yeah, so you know, I think about this actually quite often, right? You know, I think about, and I think is it a work ethic or is it an inability to delay gratification? And I find a lot of kids, right, generally speaking, because they do not truly internalize delayed gratification, because in today's world, you can order something on Amazon 48 hours. They can order something on Postmates, get food within an hour. They don't understand the power of delayed gratification. And that's something I think a lot about, you know, for my son. Like, he's grown up in such, I literally remember the house we grew up in as a kid. I literally remember watching like young kids, 9 or 10 year old kids, like smoking, like, you know, weed at that age. It was illegal back then. But I'm like, what? I remember literally seeing kids deal drugs at that young age. And I'm thinking to myself, this is so scary. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be poor. I don't want this. My kid is growing up in a pretty nice house. We got some pretty nice toys, got some pretty nice things. Like, it's a very different environment. So when I think about how can I train Roman, if you will, train him, brainwash him, there's a few things that I actively work on. So I think number one, I definitely lead by example. So he knows when dad comes in the office, it's go time. Like, he knows it's go time, right? And, you know, if he wants to come play, yes, I want some time with him, but I also explain to him, you know, when he says, oh, I want to buy this, I want to buy that, he's 4. I'm simple. I'm like, great, where we can get the money? You know, and he'd be like, oh, you're going to make the money. I'm like, well, how am I going to make the money? Like, how are you going to make the money? What are you going to do to earn this, right? So pushing back and challenges how much it's a work in progress, still a work in progress, right? But get him started thinking that way, right? That's the first piece, is being able to help hopefully rewire his brain, start thinking that way, and it does hurt a little bit because the grandparents are just, they love to get presents now. It's like everything I do gets reversed, right? Like, because they're grandparents, right? Like, hey, buy him whatever he wants. I'm like, no, I'm trying to train him to value money and to master money and not be a servant to money, right? So that's the first thing in showcasing, right? But also, what I'm also working to do as well, because I find most kids in general are not well equipped to deal with stress and adversity.
Yeah, that's
like,
very true.
They get hit with something hard.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm going to go quit. I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, you think because your boss didn't tell you a good job yesterday that you want to quit now?
Yeah.
Like, this is the real world. So, but also like training, Roman, how to, sounds strange, but love himself more and not worry what other people think. So when he's like, oh, like, for a while, it kind of worried me a little bit. Like when he was 3, he would say, Dad, do you love me? I'm like, yeah, of course I love you. But more importantly, do you love yourself? And I'll turn it back on him, right? I'll learn himself, right? So trying to rewire thinking, like, yeah. So we actually started doing affirmations, right? To get him to rewire his brain to talk himself into the right mindset. On top of that, I also been working on helping him shift, how he thinks about challenges or issues. So he comes to me, Dad, I have a problem. He's 4. I'll be like, you mean you have a challenge? What's a challenge? Okay, I have a challenge. Okay. What's the challenge? Oh, I'm trying to do this. I can't peel this sticker off. I can't do whatever. Well, instead of just helping him, I say, what are you going to do next? How are you going to fix this? How are you going to solve it? How are you going to overcome this? So I'm working. It's still a work in progress. It's not easy, right? But it's a work in progress to hopefully influence how he thinks. So when he views an obstacle, it's like, okay, instead of saying I'm paralyzed by the problem, he gets focused on the solution. So it's still a work in progress, but there's something I'm doing right now to hopefully rewire his brain. Now, I have joked to my wife, she doesn't like this joke, that we should build like a really crappy shack in the back and have him sleep in there so he knows, how my life was like, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But she's like, we can't do that. I'm like, but, he's got to appreciate what he's got, because most kids are not appreciative.
The problem is, Marcus, you'll be the one sleeping in the shack. Not...
I know. That's why I didn't build it.
All right. Well, it's the top of the hour, Doug. What else? Marcus, you are a rock star. I've learned a lot. And as I said, I like the fact that we've got similar backgrounds in our Asian culture.
I love that. I'm no rock star, by the way. I've just made a lot of mistakes is all. That's it.
Well, you and me both. And Doug's still, he's speechless because he's got a man crush on you. So, he doesn't know what to do.
No, I do not have a man crush. I will say this though, there are very, 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 very few people on LinkedIn that I actually respect. And Marcus is one of those. And, respect for me goes a long ways because, he's got integrity. He's authentic. He's genuine. He's never, trying to hustle me for anything. If I ask him a question, he'll respond quickly. He's always very motivated, and he backs up what he says. And so what's not to like, right? What's not to like? So I'm always learning, always. I really should buy his course. That's what I really should be doing. But I learn enough, so I don't have to. But one day I'll buy his course.
It's not cheap, but it's well worth it.
Tell him, Marcus, that you'll only take him seriously if he wears his baseball cap the right way. So,
hey,
I had to wear a baseball cap because I forgot to shave my head and have bald patches all over my head. So I've got to look cool, with my jacket.
Oh, okay.
No judgments here. No judgments here. It was an absolute pleasure, Doug. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, Marcus, good to see you. Thanks for your time.
Hey, cheers, Marcus. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
All right, Doug, you want me to stay?
Yes, please.